2003 Arkansas vs. Kentucky football game. The 2003 Arkansas vs. Kentucky football game was a college football game played on November 1, 2003 between the University of Arkansas Razorbacks and the University of Kentucky Wildcats. It tied an NCAA record for the longest football game ever played. The game included 7 overtime periods. Arkansas led the game all but a few minutes of regulation until a Kentucky touchdown drive in the last few minutes tied it at 24-24. Both teams had a blocked punt recovered for a touchdown, another rarity. The game ended in the 7th overtime period when Kentucky quarterback Jared Lorenzen fumbled the football on a quarterback keeper play, ending the game. Before the game, coincidentally, Arkansas played a 7-overtime game against Ole Miss on November 3, 2001, winning that game 58-56. Arkansas also lost a 6-overtime game to Tennessee in 2002, 38-41. Former Arkansas head coach Houston Nutt has been recorded as saying about overtime, "Winning is always fun. But when you win in overtime, where your players had to go that extra mile, it's really gratifying and special." Nutt continued to say, "I always like our chances in overtime." Kentucky's head man Rich Brooks has said of overtime, "Nutt has obviously been through a lot of them, and when you get through them and know you've had success, and your team knows you've had success, I think mentally that goes a long ways in helping you get the victory ultimately, whether it goes 1, 2, 3. Game summary. First quarter. The game began at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Time on November 1, 2003, but would continue into November 2. The game opened with 3 punts before DeCorey Birmingham ran for a 10-yard score for Arkansas to give the Hogs a 7-0 lead. Another 3 punts before Arkansas had their punt blocked, to be recovered by Kentucky's Andrew Hopewell for a touchdown to tie the game 7-7. Second quarter. Arkansas quarterback Matt Jones threw a 26-yard touchdown strike to Richard Smith to open the scoring in the second period. It wasn't long before Arkansas special teams returned the favor to Kentucky, blocking a Wildcat punt and scoring to push the Razorback advantage to 21-7. A promising drive was ended when an errant pass by Jared Lorenzen was intercepted by Ahmed Carroll, but the Razorbacks failed to capitalize, missing the 40-yard field goal before heading into the locker room for halftime. Third quarter. The Wildcats came out and scored on the first second-half possession, a 51-yard touchdown toss by Lorenzen to fullback Alexis B. Wenge, cutting into the Razorbacks' cushion. Cedric Cobbs of Arkansas fumbled at the end of the third quarter, but after recovering, Kentucky was forced to punt, down 21-14. Fourth quarter. Both teams swapped field goals before Lorenzen hit Chris Bernard to tie the game at 24. Arkansas had a chance at a game-winning drive with the ball with 1:30 left and 2 timeouts, but the drive ended in a punt with 14 ticks left on the clock. Overtime. In college football, both teams start on the opponent's 25-yard line and try to score, similar to innings in baseball. These overtimes repeat until a winner is decided. This system was adopted in 1996. First overtime. Birmingham started off the extra frame with 3 straight rushes and a first down. Matt Jones added an 11-yard completion before fullback Mark Pierce scored from 1 yard out. Kentucky's drive was helped out by Arkansas with 10 and 7-yard penalties, bringing the Wildcats 17 of the 25 yards required to score a touchdown. A 2-yard touchdown run from Alexis B. Wenge with complete extra point from place kicker Taylor Begley knotted the game at 31. Second overtime. Kentucky began on the offensive end in the second overtime and scored on their second play. First, an 18-yard hookup from Lorenzen to Jeremiah Drobny before Alexis B. Wenge again scored the go-ahead touchdown to give the Wildcats a 38-31 lead. Arkansas ran the ball 5 times before calling a timeout with a third down on the Kentucky 2-yard line. Arkansas came out of the timeout and committed a penalty costing the Razorbacks 5 precious yards, but Matt Jones completed his pass across the middle to Jason Peters to force a third overtime. Third overtime. As per in-car rules, beginning with the third overtime, teams must go for a 2-point conversion instead of kicking an extra point, but both Arkansas and Kentucky could only manage field goals on their possessions. Matt Jones began with a 13-yard completion, but the Arkansas drive stalled and Chris Balsero had to kick a 25-yard field goal. Similar to Arkansas' first overtime drive, Kentucky ran the ball 5 times before calling a timeout on a third down on the Arkansas 2-yard line. The Razorback defense kept Ronald Rock Johnson out of the end zone, forcing a Taylor Begley field goal and tying the game at 41. Fourth overtime. Lorenzen completed 2 passes on the drive and finally ran in for the score in the fourth overtime. The 2-point play was a Jared Lorenzen completion to Derek Ignai. Arkansas moved to the Kentucky 2 before Matt Jones fumbled. Jones recovered his own miscue. After a timeout, an incomplete Jones pass meant Arkansas must either score on the fourth down play or drop a fourth straight game. Jones scrambled into the end zone and then completed a pass to Mark Pierce to draw to a 49-49 tie heading into the fifth overtime. Fifth overtime. After an 11-yard Birmingham run, Jones slung a 15-yard touchdown pass to take the lead into the fifth overtime, but the 2-point pass to Wilson was incomplete, meaning Kentucky had only to score and make the 2-point conversion to end the game. A 2-yard run by Derek Ignai followed with a Jared Lorenzen pass across the middle complete to Jeremiah Drobny for 7 yards put the Wildcats in business. Hefty lefty. Jared Lorenzen then ran the ball 4 plays, culminating in 14 yards total and a touchdown. Tied at 55, Kentucky attempted the 2-point play that could have finished the game. The pass to Tommy Cook was incomplete, however, sending the game into a 6th overtime. 6th overtime. Lorenzen continued his success on the ground with 18 yards. In the 6th overtime, one of his runs a 1-yard touchdown run. This time, the pass to Tommy Cook was good, giving the Wildcats a 63-55 advantage. Matt Jones quickly answered with a 16-yard pass and 7-yard rush, moving the Hog offense to the 2. Mark Pierce rumbled the additional 2 yards to score, and Arkansas was a 2-point play away from a 7th overtime. Jones completed the pass to Wilson to knot the game at 63. 7th overtime. Matt Jones threw an incomplete pass before Dakari Birmingham scored on a 25-yard touchdown run to give the Hogs a 69-63 advantage. The all-important 2-point conversion was a completion to Jason Peters, giving Arkansas a 71-63 cushion. Kentucky first completed a pass for 12 yards, but a 4th and 3 on the Razorback 5 proved the game winner, as a Lorenzen fumble was recovered by All-SEC linebacker Tony Bua of Arkansas. Aftermath. The game ended at 12:1 am on November 2, 2003. This game also set an in-car record for the most points scored in a game after 1950, until 2018. Arkansas scored 47 points in overtime, breaking their own record of 41. Both teams combined for 86 overtime points, 6 more than the 2001 7-overtime affair. The game lasted 4 hours and 56 minutes. Players involved. Matt Jones went 16 of 25 passing for 260 yards and 3 TD, while running for 112 yards and a score. Dakari Birmingham, normally a receiver but filling in for injured tailbacks, had 196 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns for Arkansas. Arkansas wideout George Wilson caught 9 passes for 172 yards and a score. For Kentucky, Lorenzen went 28 of 49, throwing for 326 yards, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Lorenzen also added 39 rushing yards and 3 rushing TD to his total. Ignai was Lorenzen's favorite target, catching 10 balls for 91 yards.